This is a 2024 Chevrolet Equinox EV LT, a new compact electric vehicle SUV from Chevrolet that is yet another EV after the Blazer. And as you can probably tell right away, I am not on my usual drive route. I am in my usual state, but not in the same part of that state. I am a guest of Chevrolet to try this new Chevrolet Equinox out. And yes, I am not alone. With me is a good friend of mine, Tyler Duffy. He's the auto editor at Gear Patrol, and he's gotten to drive this car already, and he's going to share his thoughts as well. Tyler, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Yes, he is the bearded sensation, Tyler is. This is another battery electric vehicle SUV from Chevrolet following the Blazer, but it is still based on the same platform, the Ultium platform, and it does come in either front or all-wheel drive. It is one electric motor for the front wheel drive, two electric motors, one for each axle for all-wheel drive, and yes, you do get a different amount of horsepower going from front to all-wheel drive, but the battery pack is the same no matter what, an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack. So, how well did Chevrolet execute on a compact SUV EV? Let's find out. I review all kinds of cars, and I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. I will go ahead and put the base price up on the screen right now so you can see that. And I am in an LT trimmed front wheel drive Equinox myself, so this is not going to be the most expensive Equinox you can buy. And with that, now is a good time for me to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. Looking at the car from the front, it looks much like an Equinox, but there are some clear and obvious differences, of course. There's basically no grille aside from this little slot right here, and this is an interesting carbon fiber pattern right here. You've also got some lights here, but then some more lights down low right here. It's also got this really interesting lower bumper section right here. And I really do like this little gloss black bit at the end. I think that's a nice touch. There's not an engine under here, but I still want to show you what's underneath the hood. Check it out. Raw actual electronics here. This is the front wheel drive version of the Equinox. This is an Equinox LT with front wheel drive. So we've got all this motor here. We don't have a frunk. And look at this beefy engine mount that's super easy to see, and the subframe right down here. It's really cool. And then right down to the floor down here. And windshield washer is really easy to get to right here by the driver's side. Love it. Looking at the car in profile, here you can see that we've got this nice bright blue paint, and it's two-tone. We've got a white roof up there, and you can also see the low rolling resistant tires and wheels even from back here. And in profile you can tell that it's got a pretty swoopy but still somewhat typical two-box shape. Check it out. All the door handles are power retracting and opening like that. If I lock the car, they all go in like that. And very handy that the fuel door is right there on the driver's side. I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen right now for you to check out, and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. You get 19-inch low rolling resistant Michelin tires and a pretty darn efficient looking wheel as well. We are running a 55 series tire right here, and I think that is nice to see. And yes, this is a square setup. The wheels and tires in back are the same size as what's in front. Looking at the car from the back, this is a definitely more textured, interesting shape. This is definitely less typical two-box SUV. Pretty steep rake for the rear windshield right here, and then another kind of like deck lid extension right here, and then it drops straight down. But then we've got this interesting light bar that goes across just above another version of this Equinox logo. And if you look really closely, it's just this interesting 3 blue bars, but then there's a little piece of chrome right there on the edges. And there it is, a nice low loading floor, nice flat storage space. Pull on this strap, there is another lower storage space right here. I will go ahead and put the cargo space behind the second row up on the screen right now so you can see that. pull a couple levers and you have a lot more cargo space. I'll go ahead and put that cargo space up on the screen so you can see that. All right, let's check out the second row. Because this is just a 2-row SUV, we've got plenty of legroom. The front seat is currently set to be comfortable for me, and I have gobs of space. I am 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and you can see that I have several inches of knee room right here. However, the seat bottoms are a little lower than ideal, so the thigh support is only so-so, but I still definitely have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. I do also have headroom. We don't have any moonroof or anything like that. And we do have a couple of USB Type-C ports back here. And we do get an armrest with cup holders. So yeah, I could do a road trip back here without too much trouble. All right, to the front. Some interesting design choices here as well. So we've got this big speaker grill right here. Pretty typical controls right here. Lock, unlock. But look at this almost like 50s rocket kind of like air vents right here. And there's one on the other side over there. And that coincides well with this interesting like bluish polished metal right there. Adds a little bit of character to this interior, which I really enjoy. We do get the pretty basic seat adjustments right there, but it is power and it does include lumbar right there. That's nice. And to the left of the steering wheel, we do have a couple of buttons, including your electric parking brake and liftgate. We do have 2-tier storage for the center console up top with the cup holders and secondary down low, and that includes another 12-volt port. There it is. The car does not have an on-off switch. When you sit inside it with the key, it's gonna wake up right away. The steering wheel itself is a nice thick rim and nice leather on it as well. We do have several controls to the right and to the left, and we do have this paddle right here which adjusts the off accelerator deceleration you get. Right here we do have an 11-inch digital instrument cluster and a 17.7-inch center display right here. That is a massive, massive display. Because there's no on-off switch, what I have to do is put my foot on the brake. So I'm still in park, but now everything lights up. So there is my 11-inch digital instrument cluster all lit up, and there is the 17.7-inch center display lit up, and you can see we are in downtown Detroit right now. This is a big screen and it's got a lot of adjustments right here. So I showed you this paddle right here. This button right here also turns on and off one pedal driving, and you can set the level right here on the screen, off, normal, high, and you can turn the vehicle off with the touch of a button right here. That's interesting. So turn it back on, foot's back on the brake. The Chevrolet Equinox has, among other things, Google Assistant and Google Maps. That's really nice and it works really well. But as you can see, it's also got a ton of other stuff. The one thing I want to look at, charging. You have this screen right here to show you if you were charging right now, when it would be ready, things like that. You can tell it to charge later. You can tell it to precondition. You want the vehicle to be ready at a certain time. You can tell it ahead of time. It won't start charging until it knows it needs to finish by this time. You also have climate control adjustments right here, heated seats just below that, and some more controls for the climate right here. This dial right here does temperature. This one does fan speed, but you can also use the touchscreen directly for that. We have 2 USB Type-C ports right here, looking up, rear view mirror, and a couple of lights, and that's it. Like I mentioned when we were in the back seat, no moonroof, and that does help with headroom. Let's talk drive modes. You get to them through the home screen. They are right here. You have normal, sport, snow and ice, and my mode. And my mode is adjusted right here. You can adjust all this stuff right here. It does not have an adjustable suspension, but you do have different motor sounds, normal, sport, or off. That's really interesting. So if you want this thing to emit certain noises, you can. This is a really interesting EV in the sense that this is the most normal non-EV like EV I've ever been in. Me personally, I like a lot of the traits that EVs have, but I'm sure I'm not in the majority when I say that. So yeah, I think that's ultimately a really interesting and probably a smart choice. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. And Tyler, I want to start with you. You got to drive it first. This is the front wheel drive version of this car. We are not that much over 200 horsepower. I believe it was 236 pound-feet of torque. Chevrolet says 0 to 60 in like 8 seconds or so. So this is not overwhelming power here.
No, yeah, especially when you're on the highway and flooring it and nothing happens. It's most EVs are surprisingly quick, and this one is, I would say, probably at least in front wheel drive form, it's toward the other end of the spectrum. It's not as quick as you would expect.
Yeah, it's funny because you get used to that really quick reaction from the electric motor, instant response to your accelerator pedal inputs, but it's not a big response in this car. It's a quick response of nudging you along. Yeah. We are already on the interstate, so we're going interstate speeds, but if I floor the accelerator, that's it. That's what we get. It's definitely got that like classic compact SUV feel there. No frills, is certainly when it comes to acceleration. You don't get that push back into the seat immediately. You get the response, but you don't get the actual pull.
Yeah, I think you could argue that it's more accessible to the, I think Chevy's looking at the sort of common compact SUV buyer, and somebody who's coming over from a gas Equinox, like this isn't going to be as much of an adjustment. But at the same time, like there are areas where electric cars are better.
Right, it takes away from some of the typical benefits you get from an EV, but there are advantages to this powertrain as well. Because this is a single motor front wheel drive setup, it is a little bit lighter and it is more efficient, which means you get 319 miles of driving range from the 85 kilowatt battery. And that is respectable. That is awfully close to a full tank of gas in a typical car. A compact SUV, you wouldn't be that much over that.
Yeah, and it's enough that you get in the car, you drive somewhere, you don't think about the range at all, and then you can get in the car again and drive somewhere again and still not think about the range, and probably, especially when you factor in you're only charging to 80%. It makes an EV a lot more livable and more sort of what you're used to with a gas car.
Exactly right. Like there's less adjustment.
Yeah. That
part of it's really nice, and everything about this car is perfectly acceptable, but the powertrain, especially with what we've gotten used to reviewing cars, is a little underwhelming, at least in front wheel drive form. But like I said, we do get a lot of driving range out of it, and it is awfully efficient. I will go ahead and put the mile per gallon equivalent up on the screen right now so you can check those out. This is a 400 volt system, not an 800 volt system. It will charge at 150 kilowatts. I think Chevrolet told us you'll get 77 miles of range in 10 minutes of charging on a fast charger. So respectable. Considering what Tyler and I just said, yeah, it's not going to be the most breakneck thing ever, but of course, I still want to show you how quickly this car accelerates. Let me do that right now. All right, time for a quick acceleration test. We're at a stoplight. This is going to be a very city-like acceleration test, but as soon as the light goes green, just going to floor it. And yeah, pretty underwhelming launch, but then yeah, it accelerates fine. Chevrolet says for the front wheel drive version of the Equinox EV, that 0 to 60 is in about 8 seconds, and I'd say that's totally believable. It's not fast, and certainly for an EV, it's not fast, but it's perfectly acceptable, and I think anything other than really needing to enter the freeway quickly, you'll be 100% A-okay. For enthusiasts, no, it's not going to blow you away, but for everyone else, I think it'll be fine. Tyler, do you agree?
Yeah, I think, nobody's, I think in general, 0 to 60 is probably one of the more overrated automotive stats, just because nobody ever goes 0 to 60 unless they're testing a car specifically to do that. I think this is perfectly adequate for pretty much anything you would do in a Chevy Equinox. The only thing I would go back to is that one of the fun things about EVs that people who are converting are going to enjoy is that they are quick, and that they are quicker than your gasoline car. So I think this may be lacking a little something there, but I don't think, just sort of driving around town, you're really going to feel that much.
Yeah, well put, and I totally agree. And by the way, if I didn't say so earlier, that we were in the sport driving mode when we did that. All right, everybody, I got a quick chance to drive the all-wheel drive version of the Chevrolet Equinox EV. All-wheel drive also means a lot more power. 288 horsepower, 333 pound-feet of torque. Big difference compared to the front-wheel drive version. I do have one quick chance to accelerate from a dead dig from 0 speed. I'm going to put it in the sport driving mode, and we're going to see how this feels. Okay, hard on the accelerator. Oh yeah, big difference. Chevrolet says 0 to 60 in 6 seconds instead of 8 seconds, and that is a very important 2 seconds. Much better acceleration in the all-wheel drive 2024 Chevrolet Equinox EV. All right, let's dig into the chassis. Tyler, this is, I think, a stronger point here. There's nothing exciting about driving the Equinox, but it's also entirely unoffensive as well.
Yeah,
or
I mean, we
inoffensive.
Yeah.
Inoffensive.
Yeah, I mean, we drove it in Detroit, which is, you know, if you're not familiar with Detroit, it has probably the worst roads in the country or close to it. Especially, you know, coming out of winter with the pavement cracked, and, you know, it's a perfectly comfortable ride. Don't notice anything really putting a foot wrong when you're in the extent that we have corners in the Midwest, and you know, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, the ride handling compromise, it definitely leans on the ride side. If you really start hustling this car in any way, shape, or form, you get a lot of understeer. But it's a comfortable ride, just as you were saying. It soaks up the bumps really well, and it feels completely stable. And the steering weight is reasonable considering everything. There's not a lot of feel in the steering, you know, much at all. But it's stable. It's easy to keep the car tracking straight. And the seats are comfortable. All the infotainment's really easy to read. I mean, you can see we have this massive center display right here to look at. We do have climate control. We do have heated seats. So, you know, we've got a lot of comforts and a heated steering wheel as well. And that's true on the interstate as well. And I know that because we're already on the interstate. But that does lead to one other cool feature that this Equinox has. So driving aids on cars have become incredibly common. But the Equinox does take that one step farther. This will be offered with Super Cruise. So let's give it a try right now. Okay, cruise control is on, and it's set at 78 miles an hour to go with traffic. Now there's one additional button to turn Super Cruise on. Super Cruise is on, and I just need to make sure it knows that and there we go, I've got the green light. So Super Cruise is now on and operational. I have to make sure that I keep looking at the road, but I can take my hands off the wheel and I can keep my hands off the wheel. Oh, and it's doing a lane change completely on its own, so it can go a little faster, I guess. I didn't even ask for that lane change. It did it entirely on its own, but I actually don't want to do it. I'd rather be in the middle lane for this. So as you can see, it'll do automatic lane changes. It will obviously follow the curve of the highway really well. We're staying nice and centered in the lane. And as you can see, this is not the typical system where it's asking for me to put my hands back on the wheel after 10 seconds. This is sustained. The key is there's a sensor right here, a camera that's looking at me to make sure that I'm looking at the road. So if I turn my head from the road, it'll start getting upset pretty fast. More fundamentally, this is also respectably quiet. I'm actually pretty pleasantly surprised with how well this cabin isolates road noise and wind noise. It's certainly competitive for the compact SUV class, and maybe even on the high side. Oh, and we're doing a lane change again. The Equinox really wants to be in the fast lane. So yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the cabin isolation?
I think it's surprisingly good. You know, I mean, I drove out here in an Ioniq 5, and I think this is probably quieter than that on the highway, at least. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's not the traditional strength you would know Chevy for, but you know, I think they did a pretty good job with this.
Yeah, I completely agree. Altogether, this is a very good highway cruising car, and we still have plenty of range as well. Okay, there is one more thing I want to show you, and that is the off accelerator brake regeneration, the amount of deceleration you get. The Equinox EV offers multiple different levels of that, so let's give that a test. Let me show you that right now. Okay, off the interstate, time to test the one pedal driving, the off acceleration, deceleration we get. So there are 3 different settings for what is called one pedal drive in the Equinox EV. There is off, normal, and high. So off, that's coasting. We know what that is. I currently have it in the normal setting, and I'm going to give that a try. And actually, in the normal setting, you get pretty decent one pedal driving deceleration. Even in the normal setting, for a lot of normal city driving, that might be enough. So we're cruising right now, lifting off. Yeah, I mean, that's a solid 0.2 of a G of deceleration, I would say. I think that would be enough to get around the city in most circumstances. No problem at all. I'm actually pretty happy with that. Of course, you don't have to just lift off. You can smoothly roll back and get as little deceleration as you want. You have full control of that with the accelerator. You just have the option to get up to about 0.2 of a G. But, all right, let's go to the high setting. So, one pedal drive, set level to high. And I'll just lift off the accelerator. Wow, yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I'd say that's probably 0.3 of a G or better deceleration right there. And that would make it really easy to one pedal drive in this car. So this is a strength of the Equinox, I would say. This is more deceleration than average. Feels like more than the Polestar 2 that I recently tested as an example. And here we are coming up on a stoplight, and it was super easy to never touch the brake, just roll my foot off the accelerator and come to a stop and just roll along. Yeah, really good one pedal driving in the Equinox EV. Yeah, you know, the highest level is definitely plenty of decel for one pedal driving, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So, Tyler, what do you think of this 2024 Chevrolet Equinox EV?
I mean, I'd like to spend more time with it to get a definitive opinion, but I think I would say it's not going to disappoint anybody. This is, you know, if you're buying a Chevy crossover and you want to go electric, if you buy this, you know, for all normal driving, it's going to feel fine and comfortable. And I think, you know, it looks decent. The only problem, I think, you know, you're going to be sort of looking at, if you're buying or leasing an EV, you're going to see a lot of deals, so that might bring the cost of some other cars down. And I'm not sure this would be my first choice with, you know, if you have competition from, you know, Hyundai, Kia. Polestars have been pretty cheap. It's going to be facing a lot of competition that I think maybe, you know, maybe more appealing if you're more of a car enthusiast.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. They're going to be very aggressive with price with the Equinox EV, but it's not going to be that far below a lot of other options. And we are in a position where deals might start coming for EVs to keep the sales growing because a lot of momentum is going the EV route. So it will be stiff competition. But I think if you like the styling and you like the other conveniences of this, I mean, this does have Google Maps, it does have Google Assistant. Those are really nice things to have. And it does have a lot of, you know, fairly distinctive Chevrolet personality in it. So if that's attractive to you, this is a great EV to change, to get away from internal combustion to EVs. This is an easy step to go that route. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching. And if you like this video, please show me by giving it a thumbs up. Doing so helps me out a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, I do reviews like this all the time. Also, car news and engineering interviews and auto shows. So if you have any interest in following the auto industry in general, please subscribe to my channel. That also helps me out a lot, and I'd really appreciate that. And I think Tyler would be happy too. Pretty sure.
Definitely, yeah.
With that in mind, I did not that long ago review Ioniq 5, the one that Tyler mentioned earlier, and really enjoyed it. So that's a good car to check out. Or maybe you're interested in something else entirely. Well, like I said, I have reviewed a lot by now. Something will come up on the screen next to me. Hopefully that is something you're interested in. And if you do end up watching it, I definitely hope you like it. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching. Whee! Freaking race car.